Hi, welcome to episode 149 of Fresh Air at 5. In this episode, you're going to hear some conversations about Adobe Firefly, artificial intelligence and humanity, assessment, and then apple pie. So good to hear all these different thoughts. And without further ado, let's jump into episode 149. Oh, this is called On the Verge of 150 because next episode is the 150th episode of my podcast. Thanks for being a listener. Take a listen and tell a friend about this. My friend Bruce did the other day. He told a colleague about my podcast. All right, episode 149, Fresh Air at 5.
Hi, I'm Sam Fessich from the EduMagic Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to exercise by walking about my neighborhood, to take in podcast content, then reflect in an unedited video, which I finally post to my Twitter channel. This podcast will be a regular collection of the audio from these selfie videos. You can follow me on Twitter at Fresh Air at 5 or check out my website, briancarpenter.com, for other content I have created and collected. Hey PLN, good morning, December 11, 2023. Carpenter here, coming to you from, again, the couch. I woke up this morning and had some pain in my mouth still from my surgery, dental surgery a couple weeks ago, 2 Fridays ago. And so this morning I decided I was going to not push it and I was going to rest a bit more. I listened to an episode on a podcast and am just taking it easy this morning. But the point is that I'm putting some effort into listening and bringing you a reflection. All right, this morning I listened to Tech Tools for Teachers with Shanna Martin and Fuzz Martin as Shanna reports on going to Slate, the Technology Leadership Conference in Wisconsin, and she said there were some great things that happened there. As she was reporting, she talked about Adobe Firefly session that she went to, as well as some learning she's done about Quillbot. So Quillbot is a AI text summary paraphrasing tool that can be used by yourself and students to change and paraphrase and translate text. You have to drop your text into the text box, and then it gives you some choices about what you can do with that. Not sure about its need to sign in, but there probably is. And so take a look at Quillbot for yourself. It's important that we be aware of what students could potentially be using so that we can help them, teach them properly how to do these things. A second thing Shanna talked about was Adobe Firefly, and I was so excited about Adobe Firefly when I saw it back last year. I signed up for the beta version, played around with it, and went, that's curious and interesting. Where could we use that? And then it kind of faded out until the fall when I got back into Adobe Express and see that Adobe has upgraded Adobe Express to include the Adobe Firefly image generation and text generation tool to provide some graphical design in ways that is just mind-blowing. So my students have been using it. There's a lot to go on as we talk about generative AI in our classroom, and this is one way to get started. Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hey PLN, it is Wednesday, December 13, 2023. Out for Fresh Air at 5, and it's my first walk that I've gone on in about 2 weeks because I had dental surgery, and I'm back now. I'm feeling better, recovering. The rest was good. Didn't feel like it, but I did, and thankful for the time that I had to rest. All right, just looking ahead of me there's Bruce and Sophie walking this morning, and nice to see them out. This morning I listened to the Optimalist podcast with Sarah Candela. She has on guest Matt Miller of Ditch That Textbook, and Matt and Sarah talked about artificial intelligence. They talked about humanity, and they talked about the future of education and how, we need to prepare students for their future, which is not right now, but it's like 1 to 2 to 5 to 10 years out. And we need to be aware of what's going on right now so that we can bring it to them and share it with them of what's the current developments going on in certain fields and in technology and places like that. I really like how Sarah and Matt talked about the pottery barn and getting terracotta pots that are made by machines, and how, that's fine and well if that's all you need, but eventually we get tired of that and we need to get into more analog pot making and handcraftedness. And I think that's where, handcrafted beers come from and things like that. I'm involved in fly fishing and I tie flies, and I am thankful that I am able to craft fly hooks with fly patterns that, real wild living things, can eat and eat, and I can catch and see wild things. And it's that analog part. Stay in part of your analog life, stay connected to community, be involved in artificial intelligence understanding, and have a fabulous day. Thanks, guys. Bye. APLN December 14, 2023. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. I am doing well. It is early in the morning, and I woke up. It was raining outside, and I was really, really tired, so I decided to not go for my walk, but I listened to the Tom Schimmer show with Tom Schimmer, and he had on guest Natalie Vardabasso, who he is writing a book with, and they work together, and they sat down and they talked about change and mindset and assessment through story, which comes out of some of the work that they have done, much of the work that they've done in writing a new book that's going to come out probably next year called Humanizing Assessment. I think it's something like that. You can take a listen to this conversation with Tom and Natalie. Fantastic, deep thinking. You got to pay attention when you listen to this, because they talk about the importance of story in all aspects of our lives and how we understand story here in the Western civilization compared to our Eastern counterparts, and how they approach story not from a conflict perspective, but from a here's the state of where things are, to a twist, to a how do we get back to our place of calm and peace. Whereas we look at it as an introduction, we have an arising conflict, we have a resolution of that conflict, and then we have the victor and the loser. And just an interesting way of thinking about how we tell stories and what we see even in our watching of movies, from our, Hollywood side of the world to other parts of the world for, independent films and things like that. And just what we see. I find it fascinating. So this is a really great conversation, talking about change, talking about mindset and how we own our stuff as our story. And we need to accept our story. It's because that's what we've got. And I think that's so important. So thanks, Tom. Thanks, Natalie. Have a fabulous day, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Okay, bye. Hey, PLN, it's Friday, December 15th, 2023. I got up this morning, got out the door, actually at 3:30 a.m. I couldn't sleep anymore, so I'm like, I might as well go for my walk. Got out here, halfway through, it starts raining. So I'm actually headed home right now, to make a warm cup of coffee and sit down and listen to one more podcast before I call it a wrap on episode 149 of Fresh Air 5. So today I listened to Embrace the Messy podcast with Shannon Schenkel out of Vancouver, British Columbia, as she brings us an interview with Katie White. And Katie and Shannon had connected over the assessment thing that we're all going through, and assessment change over the years. And Katie White has been the president of the Canadian Assessment for Learning Network and Kathleen.ca. And she's been the president for a while and has written some books, Unlocked and Softening the Edges, that you could go check out, talking about how we engage students and have them be part of the assessment process. So this is, again, as I've said prior, not my area of expertise, not my wheelhouse, but I'm listening to educators talk about their journeys and talk about what they do and how they do it. And it's great to see Shannon and Katie talk about something they're so excited about. I'm getting excited about it. I'm not saying that I'm not, but it's not at the forefront right now for me. I'm working on understanding standards-based grading and how to go about doing those things with core competencies and all those kinds of things. All right, Katie, have a fabulous day. Shannon, have a fabulous day. And Shannon, I need to connect you with Chris Nessie. That's what I need to do. So I'm going to go in, listen to their podcast, and I think I'm going to write an email to both of you. All right, I got to go. Talk to you soon. Have a fabulous day. And the last thing for December 15, 2023, I just listened to Teach Happier with Suzanne Daly as she brings us episode 15 of season 4, I believe it is, and it's called Guilt Baked a Pie. I like your title, Suzanne. It's curious. It catches our attention, and I listened because I was curious and wondered, what are you talking about pie and guilt for? And I like how you have connected that to a moment in your past where you felt obligated to do something for your family, even when you were completely spent and you felt guilty, and that motivated you to do something. We do things as adults because we have to sometimes because we feel guilty, but other times because we just have to and we don't want to. That's part of being an adult. But as far as doing it because you feel guilty, that is a different story altogether. Yes, what's my version of that? Oh, I say yes to a lot of things. Committee work, things at school that are outside of my regular, doing things for people, trying to please people, things like that. And I have to examine my motivation for doing that. Am I doing it out of joy or am I doing it out of guilt? For King and Country says, I choose joy. And there's a song about joy. It's an awesome song. Fantastic. If you haven't heard it, go look it up for King and Country called Joy. All right. Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate it. And all of you have a fabulous week. And I am feeling a lot better and have recovered from my oral surgery pain. All right. Have a fabulous week. And we got 1 week until Christmas break starts here. Okay. Bye. As my one word for 2021 is appreciate, I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's a unique Blinkist or Cold Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific podcast episodes in the show notes for your learning convenience. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can also be found on Voice Ed Radio. Your voice is right here, and on the Education Podcast Network, podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day and get some fresh air before the day is out, and take care of yourself because you're worth it.